What if I told you that there are contests for people like you and I who spend a lot of time just painting armies for the tabletop? Speed painting competitions. After months not being able to paint because I was moving between countries, I felt a little bit stuck, but a speed painting competition that my friend Bebida invited me to reignited my passion for painting miniatures, and I think I should share this with everyone out there because I think they are magnificent ways of improving your skills and still not having to spend too many hours just with one single miniature. During the past few months, I've moved not once but twice countries, and believe me, having your whole life in boxes, it's a little bit crazy. Pevida, knowing that I haven't painted miniatures in a while, invited me to this with the idea of kickstarting my passion once again. This type of kick in the ass is exactly what I needed because I had to build my studio once again from scratch. However, the biggest problem that I have is that my paints are somewhere over here. I've done my share of competitions both for playing Warhammer and painting miniatures, but I had never done a speed painting one, and I was quite curious about the outcomes and how it would be organized and whatnot. So this made me think quite a lot about what speed painting would do for people like you and I, people who paint miniatures for gaming. Honestly, my first impression was that it will be very casual and I just will go there, get a miniature and paint it. What I intended to be just a video about a simple thing ended up being a little bit more complex than that. For as you see, all I wanted was an excuse to find my paints and start doing my favorite hobby once again. Nevertheless, this event got me planning and figuring out how to create your own speed painting competitions, and it came down to 4 key points. I'm gonna break each one down, give you some options, and maybe you can have some ideas that you want to share down in the comments below. Speed painting competition should be at its heart an event that will last only one morning or one evening, not too many hours, probably in 2 or 3 you should be finished, and then everybody could go home with a prize or the good experience of sharing their hobby with other people that think in the same fashion. Therefore, on its own accord, it's something that is very casual and doesn't necessitate a lot of resources, although you can make it as complicated and as fashionable as you want to be. And obviously, because we are talking about painting miniatures, well, the first step, the most important one. Choosing the miniature is the first step to organize a speed painting competition, and I'm gonna list some options down here that you might consider if you want to do this. This competition in particular did the single provided miniature for all approach, where you get a miniature that the organizers themselves have picked up for you. The pros of this approach is that it ensures fairness. Everybody starts with the same piece, making it easier to compare skill and creativity. However, on the other hand, it limits personal expression and may not suit everyone's style. Instead of this, you can do BYO, bring your own mini. The pros is it encourages individuality and the participants can pick a miniature that they are passionate about, but on the other hand, it makes it harder to judge on a level playing field, as some minis might be inherently more challenging to paint, that makes it more difficult to score or to give scores. But these are not the only ways that you can do this. You can do, for instance, a random selection from a pool, which has pros like adding elements of surprise and equalizes the challenge, as no one knows what they will get, but on the other hand, the randomness and the random mini might not be ideal for everyone's skill set. Also, if you want to add an extra layer of challenge, you can do a conversion challenge using a box of bits or something like that. I mean, it makes it even more interesting because it invites creativity by having competitors convert a kit into something unique, and it's also a fun twist, but it may require extra time for assembly, potentially complicating the speed factor. So that means that maybe you will have to add an hour or 2 to the time limit that you have for the competition. What do you think? Would you prefer a standard miniature for fairness, or you want the open-ended question of choosing other miniatures or making your own miniature with a bit box? For this competition, when I asked Pevida what should I bring with me, he said that I could bring any paints whatsoever, but he had also paints over there if I couldn't find my own. However, because I do my rush to wash technique, obviously I needed to have all my contrast and washes and inks, so it wasn't ideal for me just to use the paints over there, although I will be capable to use them if I needed to. This brings the next question here, about the paints themselves. How to do this and what tools should you allow in your competition? This can up the challenge significantly depending on the options that you follow through. Let's consider some. For instance, you could consider doing a curated range with a specific palette. This will force creativity within limits and makes judging simpler. Everyone's working with the same colors. On the other hand, it could be seen as restrictive, and some might argue it stifles innovation. It is, on the other hand, a very good approach if you are promoting somebody's paints, like a starting range or something like that, and it attracts sponsors because then you can tell them exactly what you would like to have, and it gives them the chance to support your contest. But let's say that, for the sake of argument, you want more liberty, more freedom. How about using an open palette with any paints allowed? The maximum creative freedom, it's one of the pros. The competitors can use their preferred tools, which was my case. But on the other hand, it is difficult to judge fairly when the quality and range of paints vary widely. I mean, if you are the organizer and you're giving the paints, then it makes sense. But if everybody can bring their own paints, some people will afford better tools, and that's a little bit limiting as well. So if paints are the issue, how about doing technique-specific challenges, like for instance using only washes or only dry brush? It focuses the competition on mastering a particular skill, which can level the playing field and also make people feel more challenged and more interesting event, but it limits versatility and might not appeal to painters who excel in other methods. I will be very happy to do a wash-only competition, but maybe I wouldn't enjoy that much using other tools. I want to revisit what I said before about sponsored starter sets only. On the pros, it creates a level playing field and provides exposure for emerging brands and companies, but on the other hand, some may not like the idea of product placement, or they might not agree with the quality of the starter set provided. So yeah, it's a catch-22. So as you can see, they are very different. Which methods do spark your creativity? Do you think they are all fair? Some of them are a little bit too difficult. Which one would you use in your competition? In this particular competition, once I knew the miniature that I was going to be painting and once I knew what paints I could use, then I did this small trick that I'm showing you in the screen right now, which is I found a picture of the miniature and then I converted it into a grayscale so I could try to paint it in an app like this one. I didn't want to bring my whole range of paints because they will get in the way, and I just wanted to be fast and efficient, so knowing beforehand what paints and colors I could use will help me tremendously. Which brings me to the next point. When we talk about painting miniatures, obviously we need the paints and the miniatures, which we discussed about already, but in here, speed is key and time is one of the biggest factors on a speed painting competition, if not the biggest factor. So deciding how much time you're going to spend on this particular thing, it's paramount to understanding how the speed painting competition works. Too much and well, then there is no challenge whatsoever. Too little and maybe it's a little bit too difficult. So how do you decide what time fits you best? Some ideas are like the 15 to 30 minutes bracket, which is high pressure, keeps energy levels up and truly tests your speed, but it may be too stressful for some and might not allow enough time for a refined finish. You could go for the 45 to 60 minutes bracket, which offers a balance, enough time to produce quality work while still being a race against the clock, but it might feel too generous for a speed competition, reducing the speed factor. Honestly, this is my favorite and this is what the competition was about. Over 60 minutes allows for a more relaxed approach, emphasizing detail and technique, but it risks losing the competitive, fast-paced essence of a speed contest. And when you go on custom time based on mini size, obviously because it's not the same for everybody, it tailors the challenge to the mini's complexity, offering a fairer competition, but it could complicate the rules and make judging more subjective. What is your ideal time frame then? Too short? Does it create excitement and it makes it more challenging, or is it a little bit too frustrating and maybe counterproductive to what you want to achieve here? Finally, we have to judge who is the winner of the competition, and this is where things can fall apart if we don't make it fair. I have thought about it quite deeply. I have organized my own events where painting was judged, and there is not a clear answer that fits everyone, so I'm gonna give you some ideas of what I have learned through the years. We can start with the expert panel approach, where you have a group of people that provides professional insights and credibility, leading to a well-informed decision. Now, the difficulty of this is that it can be intimidating for newcomers and personal biases might creep in if somebody knows somebody, etc. It can be a little bit hairy on this side. Then we have the audience or popular vote, which increases engagement and gives the community a voice, but it also risks into turning into a popularity contest rather than a merit-based judgment. And if you have a lot of friends in the people around you, well, sometimes it becomes as well a little bit hairy. There's a hybrid model, which is the expert panel plus an audience vote, which balances the professional critique with audience enthusiasm, aiming for fairness, but it also could lead to conflicting opinions, and tallying scores might get complex depending on how do you weight each one of the opinions here. I use for all my competitions, and this is my favorite. This is the one that usually in my tournaments and whatnot is the point-based rubric, which includes speed and aesthetics, because it quantifies both the creative and time aspects of the competition, which offers transparency, although sometimes designing a fair rubric is challenging. Well, let me rephrase that. Not sometimes, it usually is quite challenging. Some criteria might still feel subjective, and it's good if you show it beforehand to your competitors so they know what they're going to be measured against and they plan accordingly, but sometimes they just game the game and they play it. So how would you like to see winners decide? Do you think a hybrid approach is using the best of two worlds, or do you prefer something more pure, more straight to the facts? I had such a blast doing this that I have to honestly tell you that speed painting competitions are very fun, and it made me think quite a lot about what I really would like to see in more competitions of this style, because I think they are my cup of tea and they probably are yours as well. Painting miniatures with a time frame is very challenging, but it also makes it quite fun. Watch this video next, and remember guys, my name is Miguel, this has been Rush the Wars, and I'll catch you in the next one. Un beso, adios.